Hello, beautiful alchemist. Happy winter solstice for those of us here in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, happy summer solstice. In either case, we are all going through a season of significant change. As we transition through the different seasons, we are given a spotlight or a highlight on different aspects of the life cycle itself. And one of the things I was literally just reflecting on before pressing record was the fact that here in this solstice, the sun is moving into Capricorn. And Capricorn has such a reputation of being ambitious and a go getter and prioritizing, their success and what it is that they are here to do in the world. But the Capricorn is also symbolized by the sea goat. So, not just the goat that we typically see, but the sea goat. And that sea aspect, which would be like the body of a fish and the head of a goat, also denotes their sensitivity. And if you know any Capricorns, or if you are a Capricorn, they are very sensitive beings. While they do have, a streak of seriousness and diligence and more of that, what we would commonly associate with Capricorn energy, there is a sensitivity there as well. And, our all of us, our sensitivities may be displayed in various ways. So, some of us are sensitive in that it may come out as us emoting and crying. Others of us may have, whatever we are sensitive to, and it could express out as anger or upset or shutting down. We express our sensitivities in a variety of ways. But the bigger question here for this season, for the solstice and for the season of Capricorn is, are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to do what is necessary to support your way forward? Are you willing to change? Are you willing to take accountability and responsibility, not just for where you are, but where you want to be? Are you in a healthy relationship with the visions, the goals, the aspirations, what you dream of, what you feel called towards for yourself? But again, are we willing to do the work? Now, with it being the winter solstice, what we're going to talk about today is that work that happens beneath the surface. Because a lot of times when we talk about goals and aspirations and dreams and getting things done, responsibility and accountability, it all sounds very action oriented. And we tend to focus a lot on what we have to do, need to do, what will support the way forward, everything that's above the ground, above the surface. I see it in my mind as like a flower blooming. We're always concerned with the growth of the flower above the ground, what it looks like. Is it healthy? Is the bulb open? But before it sprouts, there's a lot that happens underground, deep in the earth, where the nurturing, the nourishment takes place. In the dark, in the womb. Now, Capricorn in of itself is also associated with this very kind of paternal type of energy, this father kind of energy. And its opposite sign is Cancer, which is known as the archetype of mother. Again, the nurturer, what is close to home, what we hold close and sacred, where Capricorn is more initiating us into our role, our reputation out in the world. But there's a balance between these two energies that work together, the mother, the father, the internal, the external, the nurturing, and the role of action that must be done. So in this season, while Capricorn again has a lot of association with what we are doing and how we are going to achieve the goals, don't forget its counterpart, that Cancerian energy that says, how will we nurture what is hidden, what is beneath the surface, what we hold closest to home, what is more personal to us before we blossom out into the world? So, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the solstice. We're going to talk a little bit about the season. We're going to have some things to reflect on, as we always do here on Reiki Radio. And before we get into it, I just want to say thank you so much for spending this past year with me here on the podcast. Thank you to everyone who has come as a guest on Reiki Radio to share with us whatever it is that they are learning that is supporting their path, that have given us all inspiration, tips, or curiosities to explore other ways of supporting our own practices and paths. Thank you all to the guests. Thank you all for the listeners, everyone that has been a part of contributing to Reiki Radio. And I am very excited to see what we will all continue to explore in the year ahead. So before we get into it, I just wanted to say that, really acknowledge how much I appreciate your presence. Reiki Radio started back in 2013, and you can imagine since then, it has been a lot of work to try to sustain the podcast, and there's a lot of background work that goes on. So I'm very, very thankful, more than you can imagine. But let's go ahead and talk more about this solstice, where we all are right now, where we are going, and get comfortable. I will see you on the other side. Okay, beautiful alchemists, let's get into this solstice energy. Today is December 21st, 2024. And one of the things right off the bat, before we go deeper into Capricorn and even that counterpart of the Cancerian energy, let's just look at the day. So 12/21. 12 reduces to 3, 21 reduces to 3. Today is a 33 day. But 12 and 23 are also like mirror images of each other. So I consider this day the 33 portal, because they reduce to 3. 33 is the master teacher in numerology. So there's a lot of essence of wisdom that is encompassed in this day. But also with that reflection of 12 and 21, it is a day of reflection. And then the 3 emphasizes the essence of creativity. So today really does embody, just through the system of numerology, this heightened essence of creativity, of wisdom. And, it's a really interesting thing, because we're talking about going into the dark season, right? And again, a lot of people don't associate, creativity with the underbelly or the underworld, but there's a lot that has to go on beneath the surface. And a part of that is reflection. That's where the wisdom is really gained. So not just today, but the season of winter invites us to go in and reflect, to learn from what we have gone through, to have more understanding about the things that we may still be resisting, what we still may be fighting against, what we may have grudges or upset, whatever it is that we're holding that really isn't serving or supporting our way forward. Are we willing to pause and simply observe and reflect? Again, what's going on beneath the surface that will help us in how we grow from exactly where we are right now. So when I was thinking about this, as you can imagine, a lot of people always ask me what I'm doing for different events. So I got a lot of questions around, what is it that I do for the solstice? Do I have a particular ritual? And I do, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I also have a wonderful friend who is a part of the Alchemy Circle who sent a message to me this morning. And she was expressing how much she loves ritual, how it has really enhanced her life. And so we had a very brief discussion around that, of how impactful ritual can be. One, it brings us into a state of presence. It brings us into a state of intentionality. it really brings us into observation and connection of ourselves, but our relationship to universal intelligence and all there is. And we start to recognize how the acknowledgement of that relationship can really amplify, the magic in our lives. We start to become more conscious creators. We start to be more intentional around our choices. We start to have more reflection and understanding again about where we are and what it is that we want to reshape, how we want to alchemize our minds, our emotions, our lives. So ritual can be very, very powerful. And there are certain times where people recognize it as a time for ritual, say like during the new moon, the full moon, the solstices, the equinoxes. There are rituals that are done for, say, All Hallows Eve. There are certain times and events where people tend to emphasize ritual, but there are other people, many practitioners of various traditions who have regularity in ritual. Some people have daily ritual. Now, the truth is, we really all have daily rituals. You may have a habit or ritual of getting up at a certain time every day, of as soon as you wake up, you have the first things you do, whether it's like brush your teeth, grab your coffee, have a meditation. There are patterns that you may have that have become very ritualistic without you even consciously recognizing or realizing that that's what it is. But what I'm talking about are the rituals that we are consciously engaged with, that we are very intentional about, where we take the time to have that conscious recognition of ourselves, again, in the present moment, and how we are interacting with the different elements, the different energies, the different essences of life, and how we unify with these energies in a variety of ways with the intent of conscious creation, with the intent of conscious release, the intent of conscious transformation, conscious gratitude, conscious acknowledgement. Ritual can be about so many different things. So when we decide to engage in ritual that is, let's say, partnered with the energies of what is going on with Earth herself, we can look to Earth, look out at nature to understand what ritual would best support us. What is Earth mirroring back to us to help us understand about our own growth, our own transformation, the cycle that we are entering collectively at this time? So one of the things you can do for the winter solstice is really just that. Look out at nature. How is Earth going through this current cycle, this current shift, this current phase of change and transformation? Again, for us in the Northern Hemisphere, it started with fall, right? So we had the autumn equinox where the trees start losing their leaves. We start seeing, more so before global warming, right? We saw more of like the animals doing certain things to prepare for the winter. But the leaves start to fall off the trees. We see Earth starting to release, mirroring back to us the opportunity to consciously acknowledge where we can benefit from release in our lives. What are we attached to? What are we clinging to? What are we ready to let go? And all of that was preparation as we enter into the darkest point of the season, which is today, the longest night. Now, interestingly, this longest night, this solstice invites us again into that underbelly, into what is going on in the earth, beneath the soil, that is supporting what is going to grow, what is going to evolve. There's a lot that is still being nourished. The trees are still being nourished before spring, where they will re-bloom, re-blossom. So what we may see as, a death cycle within the life cycle is not a complete, I want to say like destruction or complete it's not death in the way that we traditionally think of it, right? Because again, think of the tree. The tree itself isn't necessarily dead. It's still being nourished by earth, but its leaves have died and have fallen away. And life will continue to sustain the tree. Earth will continue to sustain and give life-giving nutrients to the tree until it is ready to move into that next phase of birth again, of regenerating new leaves, new foliage, new fruits. Now, again, how does this mirror for us, and what is the invitation? So while Capricorn season, happy birthday to all of the beautiful Capricorns, by the way, as Capricorn season says, how are you showing up in the world? What is your contribution to the world? What did you come here to do? What did you come to accomplish? It points a lot to what makes us feel a sense of fulfillment, success, our duty on a soul level. But before that is brought to light, so to speak, there's a lot that has to be done beneath the surface. So winter gives us this beautiful invitation to self-reflect. And the reflection will be different for all of us. Remember, this work is very personal. So some of us may go into this particular cycle of self-reflection, and we may go all the way back. Perhaps there are elements of childhood that come forward that you still are working on healing, transforming. For some people, it may be just different aspects of lineage of what has been passed down through the family. For some people, it will be more present, just a reflection of what have I gone through this year in particular. What has been more recent in my journey. There's no right and wrong in this, and there's nothing you have to look for. But when you go into the dark consciously, recognizing that the dark season requires a different type of way of looking. So in the lighter seasons in summer, the sun makes a lot very obvious. There's a lot we can see. But in the darker seasons, our vision has to change. It becomes more even intuitive in a lot of ways. To see beneath the surface, we have to tap into the other ways that we see. How we feel. How we are responding. When you close your eyes, how do you see? What is that level of vision when you dream? What is that level of vision when you meditate? What is that level of vision when you just, again, tune into the subtleties of feeling that activate through your body? There's an invitation into that level of sensory. The innermost self. And again, we don't necessarily always associate this level of observation with Capricorn, but we can't forget its counterpart, the beautiful Cancerian, that says this balance is necessary. It's important to acknowledge what is close to home, your innermost self, what it is you hold, what needs to be nurtured, your intuitive essence, in order to, at some point, allow yourself to take that accountability, that responsibility, that Capricornian essence to be successful and allowing yourself to emerge as the highest expression available to you, that is unique to you, that is authentic to you. We often try to do this functioning from what other people expect from us, what we think society expects, whatever the societal norms are. We try to find our purpose or align with our purpose, align with our truest, authentic self based on everyone but us. But if we really dig deeper, we start to recognize how life has been trying to inform us, to show us, to teach us about our wounds, about our strengths, about our resilience, about our individual brilliance. What is it that is natural to you? What is it that you feel called to do? What is it that you do well? And what is it that you're challenged by that you may need to learn more of in this lifetime or in this cycle? Where were you in resistance or tug of warring? Where were you feeling the most challenge? And without judging yourself, but being curious about it, what did you learn about the nature of mind, of emotion, of you, of life in the most challenging of scenarios? And remember, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Some people give Saturn the nickname the taskmaster, right? Because Saturn really will hold us to our lessons, but it's not to punish us. It's to help us grow. It's to help us evolve. It's to help us recognize the strength, the beauty, the ability, the capability that we have. And so this season really does kind of say, step out of denial first and foremost and recognize that blend, the sea goat, right? The sea goat, that part that is very intuitive and sensitive, but also very determined and steadfast and diligent. The season gives us an opportunity to really sink into that balance of recognizing our relationship to the feminine and the masculine. How do we relate to these energies? How do we express these energies? What do we believe or think about these energies? Do we allow them to coexist and express through us in a way that is supportive of our way forward, that is harmonious, that is unified? And if not, where can we allow ourselves to sit, to witness, to understand, and again, forgive, transmute, have compassion, allow ourselves to see differently in the dark season? These different phases within the cycle of life are such gifts within of themselves because they give us these different opportunities, these different points of focus. They give us an opportunity to kind of hone in to the different aspects of life that will help us gain more wisdom and understanding. So in the season of winter, during the winter solstice, getting back to what I do personally, it reminds me a lot of what I have learned as more kind of shamanic. It does bring up for me that idea of going into the underworld. It reminds me of going into a cave, entering a cave, and allowing ourselves to sit in that void. Now, again, when I think of cave and I think of void, I think of the essence that is in between everything that is physical and tangible. Again, it brings up that feminine. And then as we allow ourselves to really immerse in that, what is sitting, what is dwelling in our own inner space, we are given an opportunity to re-strengthen, to reclaim, to re-identify, to re-understand, to re-know. There's a lot of opportunity to heal, again, beneath the surface, in the soil, in the darkness. And that will only support us in being able to nurture more fully that which will bloom, that which we want to grow, that which we want to expand into. I want you to think about for a minute, again, when we think about what is my purpose, what is it that I want to do in life, where does that desire come from? Are you considering different choices, different options? What is it that you feel you want that you have been saying, but where does that desire come from? And the reason I'm asking is again, because a lot of us have been so conditioned to want or to aspire for and towards what everyone else would say is good enough. A lot of times what we are seeking to accomplish or do is to get validated by others, for others to give us accolades, for others to, say, good job, pat you on the back, for the recognition of other people. And I want you to really think about this because a lot of us encounter this in different phases, different times, different ways, where we may have really wanted to accomplish something. We thought it was going to give us a certain sense of satisfaction. We may have done it because whatever the motivation was, maybe you wanted to show someone else that you could, or you wanted to prove someone wrong. Whatever it was, you did it. And then the sense of fulfillment faded fast. I can't tell you how many times I've heard of people going after certain careers or doing certain things, making big life choices, and then accomplishing that thing and feeling a complete lack of satisfaction because what they were giving all of their energy and time and effort to wasn't true to them, and they didn't even recognize it. And so a lot of us have similar experiences, but we also have the choice, the opportunity to stop and pause and reflect on again, what is motivating this desire? On a soul level, the highest expression of you, if there was something that you could do, if there was something that you could experience that would truly make your heart smile, that would make you feel a sense of fulfillment, what might that be? What might that look like? And without the ideas of what other people would think or what other people would say, or if it has to be big enough, good enough, what would that look like? For someone, this is the most random, but it's coming to say someone told you their dream was baking cookies. You might say like, what? That's your dream, baking cookies? But think about the people who really, for whatever reason, that lit them up. It made them feel good. And then we have companies born of that called like Mrs. Fields, and maybe not even that big. I mean, it could just be someone who loves making cookies for people in their family and their neighborhood. But it's something that lights them up and it brings them joy. And that's what the important piece of this is. Now, granted, there may be some things in life we do out of necessity. We have, certain things that we do for work or just different things that we do that literally it feels like it's necessity. But there are other aspects of life that are just fulfilling because it brings pleasure and joy and it feels very true and resonant to us as an individual. And we often overlook that piece. What would you do for no other reason than it makes your heart smile? What would make your heart smile is something you could do or experience, whether you are paid for it or not. Let's say all bills are taken care of and, it's not about money at all. It just literally is something that feels so fulfilling to you, so satisfying to you, soul level. No judgment. No one else's opinion matters. What is that for you? Now, the reason I want you to consider this is because, again, in Capricorn season, we really do have this element here of connecting with, attuning with, acknowledging at the very least our soul's calling. What feels most resonant to us. And it doesn't always have to be what we might consider huge. It's also making me think of many years ago. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, there was an episode, at least I would say maybe 10 years ago, where I went to a fast food restaurant with a friend, and the cook was visible to us. And he wasn't really, it wasn't necessary for him to interact with the customers. You know, he wasn't ringing us up or anything like this, but he was still visible to us. And he was so nice and so happy and found so much joy in the preparation of the food. He was so joy filled. And I can't remember exactly what he was saying or what he was doing, but I remember it was very clear that he was really enjoying the preparation of the food. And so, yes, he may not have been considered like a master chef, or maybe he wasn't working at this big fancy restaurant, or he wasn't, whatever. It was just the preparation of the food that he knew that what he was preparing was going to bring other people joy. If he did it well, we were going to enjoy the taste and all of that. It didn't have to be this huge thing. And yet it was a huge thing because it really felt good to him. And that then translated into us on the receiving end of like, wow, having a whole different type of appreciation for the food we were receiving because it was being prepared with so much love. What is it that you enjoy, that you prepare, that you can accomplish with love, with sincere joy, sincere gratitude? It might be for other people. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just for you. You know, there are artists who just love to express in their artistic ways. Some of them may share it with other people. Some of them don't. But this is part of getting to know ourselves. This is part of acknowledging the truth of what is beneath our surface, asking ourselves these questions, reflecting on these things, understanding the motivations that have driven us thus far. If I'm driven or motivated to provide for my family, that may motivate me to go a certain route in my life. But at the same time, I can satisfy that motivation to feel self-fulfilled as well. And it might be just doing something small on the weekend. Maybe you take an hour for yourself to do that thing that you love. It could be sitting in nature. We all have something different that gives us that feeling of aligning with whatever matters to us. So the solstice to me invites in a deep reflection of that. Because now doing that inner work, that inner reflection, that inner questioning, looking at again what we may have grown through this year, where we still may be in resistance, where we still have some underbelly to heal and transform. Remember, the opposite of Capricorn is Cancer. And when the solstice hits during Cancer season, that's when everything is fully illuminated. That's when things come into full bloom. So think of it that way. Whatever it is you want to bloom, to grow more fully in experience and expression, you're given this invitation now to be concerned with and focused with the underbelly of it. Go into the innermost cave of yourself, into the underworld. Nurture what needs to be nurtured. Acknowledge what needs to be acknowledged. Have thanks for what has pushed you to grow and stretch and recognize your resilience. A lot of people hear Saturn and they're like, oh no, not Saturn, because again, it's all about our lessons. But think of how different experience you've had, that you've learned through, that you've grown through, have made you a better person, have given you greater insight, that have made you more wise. So if we're being invited now into this level of reflection, again, having gratitude for our growth, taking accountability and responsibility for where we still want to heal and transform and have more compassion for ourselves, have more forgiveness, have more understanding, gain more wisdom. And if all of that is ultimately, even just by default, helping to reveal more of what is true for you, what feels more authentic for you, if it helps you to identify and reclaim more of what feels purposeful to you, why wouldn't you do it? You know, time is coming up. The idea of time. Interestingly, Saturn is also considered the Lord of time. But when we think about time, this is often a barrier. People think, I don't have the time. I want to work on myself. I want to do these things, but I don't have the time. And I can't emphasize enough that everything you do throughout your day is part of your work. It's part of your spiritual path. Every choice, every decision, every response, every reaction, it's all part of the work. So while you may say you don't have 2 hours a day to commit to or to dedicate to just meditation, you do have moments where you can consciously choose to pause and take a breath. You could do it right now. You can take a moment to ask yourself, how do I feel and what do I need? We can do these small acts. In fact, I think the last podcast I posted was all about that, if I'm not mistaken. So go back and listen to that episode if you think time is an issue. But I just say that to say, don't lead with that story. Sometimes we cut ourselves short before we even attempt because we give a story of like, oh, I don't have the time. I don't know what to focus on. I don't know what to do. I don't know. And then that creates this hard line barrier that we don't even attempt to do what we're feeling called to do. So if we leave that story as like, it's some BS. Yes, I can find the time. Yes, I recognize my practice is ongoing. It is in every choice, every breath, every moment of my life. If I start to acknowledge that, yeah, I can actually see this in a different way. So the story I've been telling myself that has kept me out of consciously being involved in my practice, or the story I've been telling myself that has kept me consciously out of the effort towards something I would enjoy. I'm going to restructure that story now because, again, Capricorn is saying be accountable and responsible to your choices. So at a foundational level, acknowledge the stories that you're telling yourself and if they are supporting you or if they're holding you back. Again, this is not about judging ourselves. It's about being able to heal and transform what will help us. But we have to acknowledge what's true first. I have to tell you, that is something about Capricorn energy. It's like, it's not trying to be all, ooey gooey and, PC about, it's just direct. Like, what is so, right? What is it that we need to work on? Okay. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not hide from it. What is it that we are holding? What is in the way? What is it that we can acknowledge and say, wow, working on this thing, healing this thing, changing my mind around this thing would actually create more space for greater opportunity in my life, for greater opportunity in my experience. There are so many things that we can make adjustments to, that we can do differently, but we just don't want to look at it. We don't want to face it. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to, and it affects us. It affects the underbelly. It affects what's going on in our cave. It affects what's going that's held so close to us. So it's important that we recognize in ourselves that we really do have the strength to face what is uncomfortable. And when we feel that we don't have the strength to do it alone, we reach out to get support to help us face what may be uncomfortable. But the point is that we face it. We face these things, whatever they may be for us personally. We get the support. We make the effort. We take accountability for it because we are the only ones who can change it for ourselves. And sometimes when we're in the thick of certain, energies, circumstances, feelings, emotions, whatever it may be, it feels like there's nothing else that exists. But that's not true. And the reason we know it's not true is because we can all reflect back on experiences we've already had in life that we thought were just so hard and heavy and no way I'm going to get through this, and you did. But at the time, and being in it, it may have felt like a burden. It may have felt heavy. You didn't know the way out. You couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, on and on and on and on. But life kept pushing you forward somehow, some way. Life brought in support somehow, some way. And you overcame and worked through and lived through whatever that obstacle may have been. So I point that out to say, don't forget or don't discredit and don't minimize how resilient you actually are. And we all may go through different phases and stages where we're just tired. We're tired. And we may not feel like dealing with the healing work, the underbelly, the darkness, the shadow, whatever it is. But you can. So some of us will reflect, make different choices, tell ourselves different stories, change our minds, be open to transformation during this season. Some of us will consciously choose to recognize the ways that we are seeing things and how we can see in a higher way. Some of us will consciously choose to acknowledge, yes, I have some wounds and some things hurt, and I'm going to implement the practices, the techniques, the things that help to move me into a space of nurturing, of loving, of forgiving. I'm going to do what is necessary to activate and implement transformation, because every phase, stage, breath, moment of my life is part of my spiritual work. It's part of the spiritual journey. Every element. Now, some of us, again, will recognize this particular stage or phase may be too heavy to carry alone. And then we will have to get out of our own way to say, I'm going to ask for help and support. Again, facing what is uncomfortable. Capricorn is like, yeah, it might be uncomfortable asking for help, but if help is what you need, ask for it. Ask for it. Capricorn is holding us to our responsibilities, to being more accountable, but for our benefit. Now, the other thing about the solstice is it has been celebrated through all ancient cultures throughout time. I mean, this is not something new. In all of these different cultures, they would celebrate it as a return to light. Now, again, if we don't take things so just literal, but look at the metaphor, look at what is really being pointed to here, a return to light. In the darkest season, what is being celebrated is a return to light, because while this is the longest night, that means after today, the days will incrementally become longer. And like I said, we'll work our way towards the counterpart of Capricorn, which is Cancer. And in that season, we will encounter the longest day, the longest exposure of light. So while this season invites us into the dark, to do that work, to be reflective, to be truthful, honest, accountable in our strength, ask for help, reflect and be grateful for how we are growing. At the same time, there is a promise of a return to light. But this phase, this stage is necessary. So I would even ask you to consider that. What is your idea of dark? You know, it has such a negative connotation. Like even in this realm, like everything is so light focused. Like, ooh, you know, light and love, light filled, light, 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 light. Yes, of course, I understand why there's so much focus on light. But light and shadow exist. Both exist. Not just through our experience, not just through our being, not just through our existence, what we are. Light and dark both serve a purpose. And dark doesn't have to hold, you know, such a negative connotation. Yes, there are some aspects of dark that are just like, you know, exactly what we assume it is. But there are other aspects of dark that are, you know, again, it's nurturing. Think of a womb. It's dark. Underground, under earth, it's dark. But these are spaces of nurturing. These are spaces that are like containers for growth that feed. It's not bad. So if you think about entering this dark season, what could be the beauty of this for you? What gifts can await you in this season of darkness? What would it benefit you in seeing in different ways? How would you benefit from going into your own inner cave and just sitting, observing, feeling, experiencing a bit? What could it teach you or help you understand about light? What does this season help you to understand, again, about your relationship, that blend of feminine and masculine? What does it help you to understand about your path and how you want to move forward? It's very interesting. We have all of these different layers that we can look at, and some will resonate with you more than others, right? We're all different. For some of you, it really will be looking at it from the stance of numerology. Maybe that 33 really stands out to you. For some people, it'll be astrology, where really that essence of Capricorn and Saturn and looking at the other counterpart of Cancerian and the moon, that may really resonate with you. Some of you will be literally looking at nature and meditating on a tree and how it doesn't resist the falling away of its leaves and how it's still very much alive. We have all of these different mirrors, all of these different ways that the universe, that earth is helping us to understand the journey, the evolution of our souls. Whatever is most resonant to you, tune in, tap in, pay attention. Yeah. So happy solstice. Happy solstice. It is really a day, it is a time, it is a season of introspection. We have this opportunity to kind of, again, pause and see things a bit differently. We can observe the cycle of life, this particular piece of the cycle of life as a gift rather than something to avoid or to be afraid of. And I wanted to tell you a couple of things that people do. So, as I said, when I'm asked, people are like, what do you do for the solstice? For me, it does bring up this shamanic kind of feel of going into the underworld. So, I personally will be later today or this evening listening to drumming. So, you can listen to recordings, or some of you may have your own drum and like to drum for yourself. But I like to go into a meditative state and listen to shamanic drumming. And I go on a journey for myself into a cave, into the underworld, so to speak. And I will see how I'm guided from there. It's not really premeditated beyond that, as much as I'm open to seeing what is revealed to me in that space. But even on top of that aspect, I like to do a bit of work on my altar. So bringing in some elements that represent the elements of nature, fire, water, air, earth, and being very intentional of welcoming in the gifts and the healing and the joys of this season. It's also, a time where I'd like to start thinking about the wrapping up of this year as a whole, and having so much gratitude again for what I have learned, what I have grown through, what has been challenging, what has been exciting, just being very reflective, even journaling a bit about what comes up in the reflection of the year as a whole. But one of the biggest elements in all of this, I will say, is gratitude, having a huge bow of gratitude and opening myself up to the wisdom of what is to come. So, speaking of what's to come, we are ending 2024, moving into 2025. 2025 is a universal year 9 in the system of numerology, which is the end of a cycle. So, I will be talking more about that as we get closer to the new year. But if you've been listening or part of this community for a while, you probably know I offer a free numerology class every January. So if you're not on my newsletter, be sure to sign up for the newsletter so you get that invitation. The class is live. You can join live. It is a free numerology class where we cover the basics of numerology. We also cover the master numbers. I show you how to figure out your life path number, your destiny number, and we talk about what all of this means. And of course, we also talk about very generally the essence of the year for us collectively, which is the universal year 9. Then after that, there will be another class for those of you who really enjoy numerology. I have a class coming up that is all about the mysteries of the angel numbers. I also have a class that will be at the start of January that is very focused on the universal year 9 and the wisdom of the 9. So you can learn more about all of that on my website. Just go to theenergeticalchemist.com and click on the link for courses, and you will see all of the offerings that are upcoming. With that, I also want to remind you, if you are interested in all of the classes that I teach online next year, plus weekly practice, if you're committing to going deeper into your energy healing and practice, and you want to do that work as a community, then be sure to register for the Alchemy Circle, because registration for that will end. It will close. You can no longer join after the 28th of December. So be sure to register for the Alchemy Circle if that is something that you want to do to commit to a year of practice. We meet twice a week with focus on Reiki practices as well as other practices and teachings within other aspects of energy work and energetic alchemy. And then on top of that, you have automatic registration to the online classes that I will be teaching throughout 2025. So you can learn more about that on my website as well. But register if you want to join and be a part, because registration is closing in just a few days. So, aside from what I do, I wanted to share with you some other practices that people do to celebrate the solstice. So, there are many people in celebration of the longest night, also representing that transition from dark into light. Many people just light candles, and the candle is a symbol of the light of the sun. So a lot of people light the candle to acknowledge one, that we are in the longest night, but that is a progression into more of the light coming in from this night forward. So the candles will reflect the light or symbolize the return of the sun. It's also a great time. Again, the sun is moving into Capricorn. So it is a great time to reflect on your goals, your ambitions, but also, as I mentioned, consider the motivation so that you are really certain that what you are striving to achieve is for your own satisfaction. Like, really be honest with yourself about what is motivating whatever your current goals or desires are. And even if it is to appease or satisfy other people, I'm not judging or criticizing that, but it's good to know for ourselves what is really driving us. Because again, if it's not something that is like authentic to us, in the end, we often are left not feeling very satisfied. But it's also a great time to really acknowledge all that you're grateful for, what you have grown throughout this year. And yeah, there's just so much gratitude for each of us. I'm sure we can all be very introspective about even what was uncomfortable, what life revealed to us, what we may have been moved out of that no longer served us, what we were invited towards that may have been a gift. So many things. But one other thing I thought was really cool is for the solstice, a lot of people do a practice of creating a wreath. Creating a wreath, which we know is circular in shape. So, on one hand, it symbolizes the cycle of life, the whole 360, the cycle of life. And the beauty of these wreaths are that people tend to build them or create them using the seasonal foliage that is, local to where you are. So, people may use, the sticks and twigs and branches from wherever they live, even some pieces of the foliage, whatever it is, to make these beautiful wreaths to again symbolize the cycle of life. But it made me think also kind of like a vision board in a way. Like, what if you had a wreath, whether you bought it or made it, but you stuck in the wreath some elements of your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, what it is you're thankful for. Like, you could tuck within the wreath different herbs and spices that have different meanings. You could put within the wreath different essential oils that also have very specific resonance or meaning for you. You could put on their pin like photographs of your loved ones or just little elements and symbols that you could attach to the wreath that all have something to do with your gratitude and again, your dreams, your goals, your aspirations, what feels authentic to you. And I just thought that might be a very kind of an interesting way or a twist on a vision board instead of doing the traditional vision board, doing like a energetic wreath that is more symbolic than anything else, that has elements of symbolism within there for you. So just some ideas, my love. I hope that you are having a wonderful season. I hope that this gives you some food for thought, that you will enjoy the solstice in any way that you choose, but also the season as a whole. So this isn't just regulated to today, not just the 21st, but really kind of giving you some ways of connecting to and being more consciously engaged to how you navigate the dark season. And if you want some ways of practicing like a deeper level of observation, I always recommend 22 days of transformation, which is absolutely free. So again, if you're either on my newsletter already, or if you're not, you can register for it. Just go to my website, sign up for the newsletter, and you get access to 22 days of transformation. And it is a 22-day guided journey that helps you learn how to become more consciously engaged and more observant of yourself and your relationship to life and your relationship to energetic alchemy, whether it's mental, emotional, or anything else. So 22 days of transformation is a great way to kind of prepare yourself to being more observant. If you've done it before, do it again. There are people who do it every year. There are people who do it every time they need a reset. just sign up for the newsletter and you will have access right away. I do look forward to working with you all in 2025. I hope that you will join me for classes. There are plenty of classes coming up next year that we will be doing and exploring and learning and growing together. I am very excited for those of you that I will get to work with in the alchemy circle because we spend an entire year together. And I can't tell you how much that really nourishes my spirit because we get to watch each other grow and evolve. And that in of itself is inspirational and be there for each other in a very communal way. So I am looking forward to that. Aside from that, the energy of the month newsletter will be going out very soon. So, again, be sure you are signed up for the newsletter for all of that information. And this is not the last podcast of the year. We actually have an episode coming up on Monday that is all about feng shui, which is another way to energetically prepare yourself for this new season and, yeah, just the energetic shifts and changes that are going on. So tune in for that. I will see you all very, very soon. And remember to always journey.